Look, thank you very much for having me here, and I hope I can spend a few minutes just changing tack a little bit and talking a bit about, I guess, my perspective on what's happening in Australia and how we as Australians can try and be part of this tremendous transformation. My background is 10 years at Microsoft. A large chunk of that was running a very large product group, running the products of Outlook or Exchange. That was my fault. And then, come on, it was pretty good. It was okay. It was okay. And then I spent 21 years in venture capital. I should say successfully in venture capital, because that's not normally a common set of words put together in Australia. So I've had the pleasure of working with a ton of very good companies who've gone on to great successes, and also companies that have struggled, and I've tried to sort of help them through that. And what we've seen over that period is this amazing transformation from, when I go back to eCorp, which was my first venture capital firm, to do a startup was $5 million. You had to have your own server racks and cool rooms and all sorts of stuff. The barriers to entry were high. At NetUs, and this is now 2006, the cost of a startup was about $1.5 million. You could get some services off the web and what have you, but you were still having to have your own infrastructure. And today, the cost of a startup is nearly zero. Not only do you have an amazing infrastructure being provided to you by people such as AWS, which effectively lets you as a startup compete with the largest companies in the world, which is outstanding. But also you can borrow shopping carts, you can borrow payment systems and so forth. With very little money and a lot of viral marketing, you can create a new company. So what we've seen in Australia is that you go back to the 2006 year, there was about we were seeing somewhere around 100, 150 companies a year. We're now seeing in excess of 2,000 companies a year just through Airtree, and there are many other venture capital firms seeing them. So what does that mean going forward? Well, my sense is Australia is at a crossroads. You all know, that technology is changing at a faster rate now than ever before. This has never happened again. This is not the Industrial Revolution, which took a while, or the Agricultural Revolution, which took a while. This is happening at light speed. I've been in technology 30-odd years, more than 30-odd years. I wake up in the morning reading blog posts of what's happening and thinking, I didn't think that was going to happen for a while. And so even people in this industry like you are, you see this rate of change. And we are at a crossroads. We have a choice whether we want to participate and be a producer of the world's greatest applications and services or just be a user. We're always going to need the help of the infrastructure layer, whether it's the operating system layer or an AWS layer. But the vertical use cases, are we going to be the ones that are going to produce those or just use somebody else's? And that is a choice for us. Historically, we haven't been a very good country at doing a lot of innovation. I'll come back to that in a second. This is not an opportunity for us to do a practice run. This is a one-shot. The next 10 years will define Australia's economic prosperity, done and dusted. So what we do now is really sets the stage for the long term. And you've heard about artificial intelligence, machine learning. We all have it. Every board in every company talks about it. No one knows what they mean, but they say yes. They used to go, big data, and now they go, AI. No idea, but they have to nod knowingly when someone mentions it and sort of do this sort of stuff. Now, there's a very good podcast a while ago, Sundar Pichai, kind of not an average guy, right head of Google. He said that artificial intelligence machine learning will be as disruptive and important to mankind as fire and electricity. Non-trivial. And in the same way we had to work out how to harness fire and electricity to our benefit, not our detriment, will be the same with AI machine learning. You would know about China's Sputnik moment. For those of you who are around my age or a little older, you'd remember the Sputnik moment was when Russia set up a satellite, the Sputnik, and the US went, we should do something. And so they started the Mercury program and then obviously to Apollo. Well, when DeepMind solved Alpha with AlphaGo, the game that was never going to be solved by computers for 50 years, whoops, they solved it in 2015, that was China's Sputnik moment. You can see there's a great translation of the Chinese government's statement on AI and machine learning, where they've said they will be the leading country in AI and machine learning across all attributes by 2030. Done. They are spending $1 billion a year now on PhDs in data scientists. France announced last week they're spending $2.4 billion on AI infrastructure alone between now and 2020. Google and Microsoft call themselves AI companies, not search companies, not productivity applications companies, but AI companies. There are a bunch of decision processes we need to go through in that place, whether it's, you're looking at your platform level, how you choose a platform, what the platform provides, I'll come back to that. The data sets you use, you need sufficient data sets, how much noise is in there, skill sets, will come back to that. And all these countries and companies are running at this 100 miles an hour. What's happening in Australia? Some very cool startups, and you'll hear of one fairly soon, and others, but not much at scale. Lots of science projects, lots of cool things that people put in their PR releases, but at scale, large Australian companies at scale, it's very few and far between. We are behind the 8 ball. This is Australia's opportunity. But let me talk about Pigeons. The one thing I want to try and put in your mind is that we are not that special. If you haven't read Sapiens by Yuval Harari, you should. It talks about the Sapiens tribe. We've been around about 100,000 years, or 60 to 100, depending on who you believe, or what data set you want to take. But there'll be a tribe before us, there'll be tribes after us. We are not that special, and what we do is not that special. Pigeons, very quickly. So pigeons have the same neural pathways as humans, from their eyes to their brains. They're pretty stupid other than that. Two universities took 8 pigeons, trained the pigeons. If the pigeon clicked on a breast cancer cell slide, it got a food pellet. If it clicked on a non-breast cancer cell, it didn't. In 6 weeks of training, the average pigeon was 85% accurate in picking breast cancer cells. Next data point you need to know is that the best breast cancer oncologists, pathologists in the world are 94% accurate on picking breast cancer cells. Next data point, they flock sourced the pigeons. So each pigeon saw the other pigeon's data sets, and as a group, they were 99% accurate in picking breast cancer cells. So 8 pigeons were better than the breast cancer oncologists in the world. Should pathology labs be full of pigeons? No, they shouldn't. But the point is, this is just pattern recognition. This is not a high-order job or a high-order skill. And there'll be whole lots of jobs of the binary application of sets of rules that disappear. And what we have to do as a country is work out how to take those new roles that are created, those new application use cases. So it's the opportunity for our country to not just sit back and have pigeons do the pathology work, or just continue to buy vertical use applications overseas. I'm heading off on late in the week to look at medical imaging applications in the case of melanoma. Another cool, it's just pattern recognition. There's no intuition about looking at a mole. When the software looks down at a mole, it expects to see a mole, not an avocado or a chicken, and then it works out whether that mole's got the attributes to be melanoma. It's quite well known, and there'll be a lot of dermatologists who will have issues with their careers going forward because of that technology, as radiologists will in a lot of other areas. So it's our opportunity to truly become an innovation nation, to shake ourselves up, to see where the new jobs will be, because my premise will be that there will be jobs created, but there'll be net job destruction from what's happening. So how do you create national wealth in that environment? And how do we ensure the debates we have in this country are based on the right premise and not about who will fund the next coal-fired plant, or whether it's 30 or 31 polls that really matter in terms of leadership of this country. The innovation ecosystem in Australia, very quickly, we are doing okay on a few things. Money is up. So there was about 150 million in venture capital in 2012. Last year, $2 billion raise. If you've got a good company, you can't get it funded, it's probably just quietly. If you can't get money today, it's a idea. Or it's very, very, very early, which maybe you were right, but they'll be in 20 years' time, we'll tell you you're right. University research is high quality. Our universities are some of the best researchers in the world. Look at our rankings on papers and patents. So don't let anyone disparage the university sector. We have great researchers. Our skills base is small but growing. We don't have enough skills for the jobs we need done to build the great companies. So what would you do if you're a government? You'd cut off skilled immigration. Ingenious move. And of course, that's now been turned around, but we're now seen as a country that tells people with skills who aren't natives to, which is a terrible thing, because look at the US. I'll give you some stats about that. In the United States, 12% of the working population is foreign-born. 44% of the working population in Silicon Valley is foreign-born. 65% of the founders of Silicon Valley are foreign-born. I think foreign-born skilled immigrants are useful. The biggest issue we have in Australia is corporate R&D. Australian corporations spend, it's a technical term called on R&D. It means low. It means low, not high. And I'm not talking about the Amazons or the high tech or the Googles or Atlassians. Let's take Procter & Gamble and a large grocery company. I don't know, pick a name. And you'll see that the FMCG companies in the US are spending between 8 and 9% of revenue on R&D. What are the Australian equivalent spending? Sub 1%. The biggest tragedy going on right now in Australia is our Australian corporations live in oligopolies, protected by market characteristics and structures, and watch for things coming over and then respond, as opposed to looking out over the horizon for what should be the product in 10 years' time, not in 2 years' time or in 6 months' time. And we need to have a level of disruption there. I'm over time, so I'll move very quickly. So we have some great Australian companies. We used to always be about Cochlear and ResMed, who are fantastic companies, and Seek, a fantastic company. But then it was the and. Well, there's a lot of ands now. You see some of the logos here. The Atlassians, extraordinary companies started by 2 extraordinary men. Canva, the latest unicorn to join the unicorn ranks. And others that will get there. In the e-commerce space, which people say you can't succeed in e-commerce in Australia, well, you can. Pet Circle is. Hyper-Anna, an extraordinary company in the NLP space. My point being that startups aren't just little companies, they're becoming big companies. And so the choice factor, which I'll get to in a second, is not just about working in a 2-person organisation or a 4,000. There's an interim. So, which brings me to the last slide, and I'm sorry I'm running over. You guys, and that's a generic term, you guys have probably got more of the future of our country in your hands than any other room in any place in Australia. Because you understand the application of technology to solve use cases. And you know the technology will change the economics of solving use cases. And what I'd say to you is that you have a choice. You can stay working in slow-moving, boring, comfortable, large organisations who are not innovating. You could work in large organisations that are truly innovating, that are truly disrupting their own business models. They are releasing products and services that are cutting their own products and services. If they're not, that's the test. That's the test. Not they're just doing science projects around the edge, but they are launching products, giving more for less, which is what Amazon always does, and AWS always does. More for less, more for less. Or you can choose to go to one of the scaled startups that are coming. There are many companies over the next few years that will be $100, $200, $500 million companies. And some of those companies will be a better place for you to have an impact on your career, but on the country. Because I think I would share with you, hopefully, the same goal, that we want a country that is safe and stable and prosperous for ourselves, for our children and our children's children. And that decision is going to be made in the next 10, 20 years and be made by you. Thank you very much.